How we help the world is by working on ourselves internally. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but that's just because I get so fired up. But how we change the world is by coming back to our own truth, realizing our truth for ourselves and embodying that truth, because lies and evil cannot survive when you come back to your own empowering truth. Hello, my loves, and welcome back to my channel. I am so excited and so grateful that you are here with me today. I wanted to sit down and do a little, I guess you could call it book summary, book review of a book I just finished last month, and that is The Fifth Agreement. Like the words that just come to me when I think of this book and the book that came before it that I read and also felt the same way, is just simple and profound. Like the ideas in this are so mind-blowing and can just really change your life. That's why I knew I had to make its own unique video just for this book, sharing my takeaways from the book. I did something similar in the spring with an Abraham Hicks book I read, Ask and It Is Given, so I will link that if you want to go and check it out. So just a little about the book before we get into the details. It's all based off of Toltec wisdom, and it's a practical guide to self-mastery. So both of the writers of this book, like I said, it's a father and son duo. They are both Naguals. I hope I'm saying that right. But basically just like the keepers of this knowledge, and it's been passed down almost in secrecy from generation to generation from, this ancient wisdom. And I love learning about ancient wisdom because it always seems to be like a similar message, just in different flavors. And their flavor just resonates with me on such a deep level. So main concept of both of these books, and especially in The Fifth Agreement, is that everything in our reality are just agreements. From like the thoughts that we think, to the words that we use, to our concept of money. We've agreed that money means something when you exchange it. We've agreed that a tree is called a tree. We've agreed on the definition of beauty, or maybe we haven't agreed on the definition of beauty. Maybe we're questioning those things. And that's one of the most powerful takeaways from this book for me, is just questioning those agreements. Do the agreements that you have in your life serve you, or do they not serve you? And can you question the ones that don't serve you and pick up new ones? A central theme that I mention in pretty much every single one of my podcast episodes, and probably many of the videos I have here on my personal channel, is that we are the creators of our reality. We create our reality with the agreements that we agree to. And the premise of these books is to give you 4, now 5 agreements that can really help you live your most aligned life, aka live your best life. So let's go ahead and get into those agreements. So we come into this world, so I hate to use these words because they have other connotations, but pure and divine, and knowing exactly who we are. We have this sense of truth. And then as we grow up, as we are surrounded by people and circumstances and other beliefs, we take on other agreements to help us just interpret our reality. And I have this question again so many times on my podcast as I talk about these topics and interview other people. It's like, why do we do this? Why do we come in knowing the truth, forgetting it, and then later on relearning it? And I think it's for that reason specifically. We forget so we can remember. We forget so we can learn it in a new way. And that is just such a beautiful thought when you think about it that way. And that serves me, because there have definitely been times where I'm like, what's the purpose to this all? Like all this suffering we have, we forget our true nature when it's there all the time. We forget so we can't remember. So in the first part of this book, they talk a lot about how we are domesticated. The things that we are taught, the opinions that we are around become our subconscious, whether we are aware of it or not. And then eventually we start to question things. They say that the things that we learn when we grow up are only true because we believe they are true, which is mind-blowing to think about for a second. A really good way of explaining this is we have the object that we are perceiving, which is truth in itself. And then we have our interpretation of that object, which is just that. It's an interpretation, it's a reflection. And with reflections come distortions just by nature. And if you think about that, everyone sees things a little bit differently depending on their personality, their subconscious, their experiences, their beliefs, all the different things, right? So we're each interpreting the things around us a little bit differently. And that's where those distortions come in. Then the next point that they make, which I really love, is that we are all artists. We are all the artists of our own life. We are creating this story with our agreements. And a major part of these agreements are the words that we choose, either within our head or verbally out loud. So that is the first agreement. Again, that was mentioned in the first book, and they review them in the second book. And that is be impeccable with your word. What that means is just like choose words that serve you. Choose phrases that serve you. Really question like the things that you're saying in your mind. Is this actually your truth, or is this just a story that you've picked up along the way? And remember, you get to choose what those words are. You have power over that, whether you realize it or not. And I know sometimes you get caught up overthinking your thoughts, right? But when we just like slow down and tune back in, we can remember how much power we have. That's what I love about this book, is it reminds you of your power. You are the creator of your life, and you're creating it with your words and agreements. But along with that every human is an artist. We are all creating our own worlds. And they use this cool analogy of like you could step into a movie theater of your virtual reality, how you see things. And then you could step into another movie theater with the virtual reality of your mother or father or sibling or friend. And each one of them is going to be different. Again, because we each have our own interpretations. But what's important to remember is that interpretations are not necessarily the truth. Each time we interpret our reality, we lose some of that truth. And that's why everyone's virtual reality or dream or creation that they are creating within their life is different. So just something to be aware of. We're all in our own little worlds. I definitely feel like I'm in my own little world a majority of the time. Now, this is a really interesting point, and we're going to connect back to this again later on. But humans think that the conflict is between good and evil, when really the conflict is between truth and the lies. They said that truth doesn't need to prove itself. It exists whether we believe it or not, which just blows my mind and also makes my heart happy. Like, the truth is out there no matter what, whether a majority of us believe in it or not. The truth is the truth. And another part that gives me a lot of solace is that lies only exist when we give them energy, when we give them our belief. So when you take away that belief, when you take away that energy that you're giving to the lies, you're like suffocating the lie, and the lie cannot exist without you believing in it. Unlike the truth that always exists, whether you believe it or not, lies need belief in order for them to persist. What they describe as evil is when we believe a lie and then try to impose that lie on other people. That is true evil. Again, this is just like blowing on my mind, recapping all this. It's so different from what we're traditionally taught about good and evil. According to the Toltec, hell is nothing but an illusion of lies, and it's truth that brings us back to authenticity and freedom and true peace and happiness. Now, I'm going to say this quote verbatim because it's so good. So I'm going to be looking at my computer just so you know. These are where all my notes are. I've been taking notes on my phone as I read books now instead of highlighting, and it's just been so fun for me to nerd out with each book. But they said, we don't have to die to go to heaven or hell. Heaven is all around us, and hell is all around us. Heaven is a point of view, state of mind, and so is hell. It's obvious that lies have been running every show in our heads. Humans create the lies, and then the lies control the humans. But sooner or later, the truth arrives, and the lies cannot survive in the presence of truth. Again, this passage just brings me so much hope and peace and solace that like things are going to be okay. I know, especially in this day and age, it's so easy to get information about what's going on and be overwhelmed about how to help the earth be a better place. I know I get overwhelmed a lot. Like I want to help with all the things, but I don't know what to do. And I try to do things, but I don't know if it's actually helping, blah, blah, blah. That's me getting in my head, right? How we help the world is by working on ourselves internally. And I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but that's just because I get so fired up. But how we change the world is by coming back to our own truth, realizing our truth for ourselves and embodying that truth, because lies and evil cannot survive when you come back to your own empowering truth.
Right, full disclosure, if things look different, it's because Arlo woke up from his nap early and I had to wait till Steven got home to finish this video. But I'm looking at my notes and I realized that somehow I missed the second agreement in my spiel. So the second agreement is don't take anything personally. Connecting back to everyone's creating their own dream, their own virtual reality. Like it's all created by them. So a lot of times we take things personally when it's just a projection of someone else's virtual reality. So the two agreements so far are be impeccable with your word and don't take anything personally. So now let's move on to the third agreement, which is don't make assumptions. They said everything in creation is perfect, including humans, which is such an interesting thought. Like everything is perfect. There's not necessarily good or bad, good or evil. Everything's happening just the way it should be. And again, it comes back to our perception that gives it meaning. They said that most assumptions are false. And one of the biggest assumptions that we make right off the bat is that everything in our virtual reality that we have created is true, which again, most of it is not the truth. So it's just such like again, mind-bending concept that again, we've been like conditioned to believe all these things that are not necessarily true. We hold so much stock that everything in our reality is the truth, that everything in everyone else's virtual reality is true, when most of it is not true. And that is a part of the spiritual path, that is a part of a spiritual journey, and it is a continual journey for an ever and ever and ever, and that is just coming back to your own truth. They say that humans have such vivid imaginations, which is so true, but a lot of the times we use those against ourselves to make up all these stories about how we're not worthy, we're not capable, we're not allowed, whatever it may be, to do the certain thing, when really we could be using that imagination to be creating the most beautiful, vivid reality that we can create. Assumptions are those lies that we're telling ourselves, and assumptions are what make up the gossip. That is a majority of the things that we share as humans, which is gossip. I try my hardest not to be a part of gossip. I'm not perfect at it by any means, but gossip is built on making assumptions. Now I have another direct quote for you. Not taking anything personally gives you immunity in your interactions with others. Not making assumptions gives you immunity in your interactions with yourself. So that's even like judgments and thoughts that you have about yourself. Don't make assumptions about what other people are doing, how that affects you, what that makes them think about you. So many times we have no idea what the intentions are of someone else when they say something to us or they do something that makes us feel a certain way. So that's why the second and third agreements are so good and so powerful. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. It's not about you. And don't make this whole story about the thing that happened that's going to not serve you in the long run, in the creation of your virtual reality, in the creation of your dream. Remember, everything is an agreement, and we can question those agreements at any time. And what I love most is that when we're not making assumptions or taking things personally, we can use that energy towards other things in our life, like going after the things you want to do, pursuing your passion, showing up as your best self for your family when you're not bogged down by all these things that you're taking personally and assumptions that you have made, which all of them, if not most of them, are false. Now, this next point blew my mind and is interesting, which I think I've said about every single point so far. But that's why I'm sharing this stuff, because I think it is so good. They said that our belief system becomes the book of law that rules our life. And these rules are rules that we have created. We give these ideas and concepts, whether they are true or not, life by just believing in them. And we can shift this at any time. We can change things at any time. It doesn't take a lot of thought, but it does take action. Like I mentioned before, every time you question an agreement or release an agreement that you've had for a long time, that energy comes back to you. And you can, again, use that energy towards the other things that you want to pursue in your life, towards living your most aligned, fulfilling, and present life, which is what I'm all about over here. It's about like freeing up that energy. We spend so much energy thinking about what other people think of us, thinking about the future, thinking about the past, taking things personally, not being impeccable with our word, when we could take all that energy back and create the life of our dreams. Because if you want to get deep, if you want to get trippy, this is a dream. This is a virtual reality. I mean, I believe that to some degree. I don't know exactly how it's all working, but we create it. So use that power, use that creative power for your highest good, for everyone's highest good. That's how we change the world. Now this leads me to the fourth agreement. We haven't even got to the fifth agreement yet, but the fourth agreement is always do your best. And I love that they say that your best is always changing, depending on your mood, your circumstance, your energy level, time of day, whatever it may be, season of life, your best is always changing, and that's okay. But just do your best and release the rest. That's not even part of it, but I just like how that rhymes. Do your best and release the rest. We are human. We will not get it perfect. We're not designed to get it perfect. Contrast actually really benefits us. If you want to get into Abraham Hicks, we need contrast to learn and grow. So we are not always going to do our best, and that's okay. It's about having compassion and being kind to ourselves when we're not doing our best, and just remembering to do the best that you can in every situation and release the rest. Now, the fifth agreement, we have finally got there, and this is my favorite because there's so much power in being curious, and that is question everything, but listen. It is such a practice of, and it does take practice, continually going throughout your day, going throughout your reality and questioning, is this your truth or is it not? I notice myself so many times now, especially when the news comes on or someone's talking about, their scarcity or how terrible the world is or how this or that. I say, I don't choose that timeline. Like when they're worried about something in the future, like the apocalypse or whatever it may be, I say, I'm not choosing that timeline. And I'm not. I think there are many timelines that we can choose in this quantum reality. And I continually try my best, do my best, which is not perfect, to choose the highest reality for myself. When you start to question things, you take your power or your faith being in all these symbols that we have around us, all these words, all these agreements, and put that faith and power back into yourself, which is so powerful. Like I mentioned before, truth doesn't need you to believe in it to survive, but lies do need you to believe in it to survive. So as we do this, as we question everything, we are taking the energy and power back from the lies and funneling it into the truth, which was there all along. And those lies will just die out as more and more people start to do this, which is going to be so beautiful to see. I think it is already happening, but as more and more people continue to remember this, because this is a remembering, we're going to see massive, beautiful, magical, enlightening, expansive shifts in our reality, in our collective reality. Now, this is important, and I can get caught up in this again because I am human. Be skeptical or curious in an aware way, not in a I'm better than you way. And I hope I never come off that way, but I know sometimes I can get so excited about these things. I'm like, this is the truth and everything else is lies, and you're silly if you believe in that. I just get so excited that I do kind of step into that zone. But it's so good to humble and ground yourself and remember that being more aware, which awareness is key, we're going to talk about that, doesn't make you better than anyone else. It doesn't make you more intelligent. It just makes you more aware. That humility piece is a huge part of awareness. And remember, it's not about being right or wrong, because we all have our own truths. We all have our own virtual reality, which is a trippy thought, but also a relieving thought. Like, I can have my truth and you can have your truth. They can be different. And that's okay. We can coexist and still hope for the highest good for everyone around us. Now, this next practice is such a powerful one, and I need to practice more. But that is a listening without making judgments or opinions. That's hard. That's so hard to do because we are just wired to judge and make opinions about our reality, to interpret it, to make sense of it, to perceive it. But just to be an open, present listener is so powerful. And then you can determine, as someone is speaking to you, is this my truth? Do I just want to be a respectful listener and let them share their piece but not take it on? Or do I want to take on their truth? I have that choice. I have that choice if I want to make it one of my agreements or not. And there's such a respectful, grounded, compassionate way, kind way to do this, right? Listening, but being open and questioning things. You are responsible for what you do with what you hear. You are the one that gives meaning to every single word. And by this note, I just put, wow, 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 wow. Like, taking radical responsibility like that is not easy, but so powerful. You don't have to take on what other people are saying. You give meaning to each word. So good. If you take anything from this, take that. Now, this next thing is interesting, but they said believing in yourself is one of the worst things you can do, contradictory to all those signs and posters that we have everywhere, every coffee mug that says believe in yourself, because we tell ourselves lies. Now, here's Lindsay's interpretation on this. Believe in what your soul, your intuition, your internal guidance is telling you. Don't believe all the mind stories that we have. And it's such a practice of distinguishing between the two. That is something that I've been talking on my podcast about forever, since the dawn of my podcast, is learning the difference between those two voices. So go and check out Alignment Adventures if you haven't already. So many resources on distinguishing between your heart and your soul and your intuition in your mind stories. Now, they say nobody judges us more than we judge ourselves, and ain't that the truth? We are our worst critics, and it's just about like catching that voice and questioning it. So much power in that. Catching that voice inside your head and just questioning it. Is this actually true that I am not capable, or I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not whatever enough to do this certain thing? No, it's not true. It's just a mind story that you picked up from somewhere in school, or your parents, or your family, or wherever it may be, and you can choose new agreements. I think it's important to acknowledge this fact that they said that gathering knowledge just makes us feel safe, which I totally feel that. Like, I love learning and gathering knowledge on how things work because it just is fun and aligning for me, but it does make me feel safe on a certain level. It's just important to remember that not all the knowledge that we learn is true. And a lot of times we just make identities around all of these perceived lies that we've learned. And just be patient and kind and compassionate with yourself as you question these things. It can be a lot. So like a little bit at a time can go a long way. And this is also what people call like ego deaths, right? When you've had this whole identity around this certain belief, and when you release that belief, it can actually be a really scary place to be. So there's so many resources out there on ego deaths. But of course, you're not going through any of this alone. Reach out to people, reach out to therapists, coaches, friends, family, as you're going throughout all of this. And let me know in the comments if you've experienced any of those ego deaths that I've been talking about. I've experienced quite a few this year, like this calendar year and the past 365 days. I've experienced quite a few. And you know, on the other side of it is so much growth. So much beauty and questioning things. So let's move on to the next part, which kind of has this religious connection, which I find so interesting. I'm actually reading a book right now by Sasha Sagan. She's Carl Sagan's daughter. It's called Small Creatures Such as We, I think it's called. I'll put it up on the screen. It connects like science, spirituality to all the rituals that we have in our society. And I'm just like eating it up because I love learning about different religions, why they do certain things, the scientific reasoning behind certain things, and how it all connects. I just love nerding out on that. So I found it interesting when they connected to some religious stories in this book. Now, they said that we kind of have a distorted version of Adam and Eve, which, let's be honest, all the stories in the Bible are probably distorted to some degree because humans have been interpreting it and putting their own flavor on it for a long time since its creation. So just wanted to put that out there. I'm not super familiar with all the stories. I know the basic concept of Adam and Eve, but they said that the question that the snake asked to Eve was, do you want to be like God? And instead of saying, I already am God, we are all God, every single thing in our reality is an extension of source energy of God, we said yes and bit the apple. And that was the first lie that we believed, that I am not God. We are not God. We're all not God. That God is external from us. It's this other powerful being that can judge us and smite us and has power over us and determines our fate and all that stuff, when we're all extensions, like I said, of the same fabric of reality. We're all extensions of source energy of the universe, of light, whatever you want to call it. I believe that. I feel that in my body. That is my truth, for sure. Okay, I have another excerpt from the book elaborating on this Adam and Eve story. What makes us bite the apple without noticing the lie is the doubt. Before we have the doubt, we don't even know. The truth is there, and we just live it. Once we ingest the lie, we no longer believe that we are God. And this is when we start to search for God. Next, we believe that we have to create a temple to find God. We need a place to worship God. We have to sacrifice everything to reach God. We have to create pain in ourselves and offer our pain to God. Very soon, we have a big temple with thousands of people believing that they are not God. Of course, we need to give God a name. And the result is their creation of religion. Again, I'm just fascinated by religion, so I found that so interesting. And I think that's why religion has never really just clicked with me, because I've always had this connection to my truth that we are all extensions of God. And I think God is way more complex than we can explain with words, but just I find that so interesting. So let me know if you're like me and you find the connection between all religions to spirituality and science just like the most exciting thing to learn about, because that is my highest joy right now. Now, this next point I've heard before and just really puts things in perspective. It says that humans are the only species to make a mistake and punish themselves for it 1,000 or more times. And the same goes for other humans. Someone else makes a mistake and we punish them 1,000,000 times, right? Like, we all make mistakes. It's just a part of the game of being human. They said it is okay to make mistakes, and there is perfect justice when you make a mistake, that you will pay for it only once. And if you are kind to yourself, that payment will be very minimal. And again, let's bring it to Lindsay's interpretation of this. We can take it to so many extreme examples, right? But when you make mistakes, there is a gift of the mistake that you will learn from that mistake, and you will take that lesson with you on into life. And maybe it'll take you many times of making that mistake to finally learn it, and that's okay. Again, it's just part of the game. But don't continually punish yourself for the same mistake. Learn what you needed to learn and keep moving on. Keep trying your best, and don't take it personal, and don't make assumptions about that mistake. And when you stop judging yourself, your mind becomes your ally, it becomes your friend. And that's such a beautiful spot to be, and I need that reminder daily. Stop judging yourself, and your mind will be your friend. The mind isn't going anywhere. When it does go somewhere, when it stops, the game is over, right? We need our mind. So it's not all like doom and gloom with the mind stories, but just being aware of the mind stories, releasing that judgment so you can work with your mind. Connecting mind, body, and spirit is such a pivotal concept of all religious and ancient teachings. Now, another interesting tidbit about the connection to religious things is they said that communion is the same frequency as love and connection. So I know that word is used a lot, especially in certain faiths, but when you're in communion, you are in that frequency of love and connection, which we can all use a little bit more of. Now, I put my notes up here just so I can get through the rest of these notes a little bit faster. But the 4 agreements are tools for creating your own personal heaven. The 5th agreement is a tool to win the war against the tyranny of symbols. I just love that explanation. So the first 4, being impeccable with your word, not making assumptions, not taking things personally, doing your best, is creating your own personal heaven in your own dream that you are creating. And then the 5th one, question everything but listen, really helps you win that war when you are continually confronted with other people's agreements. Like, do you want to take that on or not? You don't have to. You can question everything. I think there's so much beauty in questioning everything, and there's a really respectful way to do that as well. Symbols are this masterful creation, but when we put all of our power in the symbols, we're just giving all our power away. And, we're always thinking that some powerful being is going to save us, whatever that is to us, but really it's us that saves ourselves. And that makes sense because we are that powerful being. We are a part of that powerful source that we think is outside of us. It's been inside of us this whole time. And the beauty and magic of remembering that just is a journey, and so beautiful, the ups and downs of it all. Let's elaborate on respect a little bit more. Such a beautiful agreement, and like with all agreements, it starts and ends with us. When you accept yourself for the way that you are and accept others for the way that they are, you're not trying to convince anyone of everything, which I need this reminder all the time. There's so much peace, and it just opens up so much beautiful energy for that co-creation. The fifth agreement is all about respect, and it's so important because we're not really trying to change other people's dreams, other people's virtual realities. We listen and we allow them to write their own stories. Like we said before, being aware doesn't make you more intelligent or better than anyone else. It's not my job to go out and change everyone else's virtual reality. It's my job to change my reality, which in turn will change everyone else's, because we are all connected. Like, that's the paradox of it all. To change the world, we start by changing ourselves. Now, the last little connection to religion here, it says that the last judgment is not something to be feared as a sinner, but rather a day when we make our last judgment on ourselves and our last judgment to those around us. A day that we come back to our truth and awaken the dream. Like, just imagine the day of the last judgment. That is going to be such a freeing feeling. And again, in my experience and what I've learned to know, this isn't going to just happen all of a sudden. This is a gradual process. But the more that we connect and remember our truth, the less judgments that there will be with ourselves and with those around us. And that's just going to be a beautiful thing for everyone. Now, in this last little bit here, let's talk about bliss and peace, because that is what is on the other side of questioning all of our agreements and following the 4 agreements. There are no words to describe what you really are. And you no longer need to describe it when you get to this certain point. You just have peace. And that sounds so amazing to me because, again, I'm in that stage of like consuming information and just trying to figure it out, right? There gets to a certain point when you don't even have to explain it. It's just a feeling. It's just a state. And that sounds amazing to me. So we're all messengers. We all came here to be messengers, which actually angels means messengers in Greek. Your presence is your message. Just your presence and existence is your message. Mic drop. But we deliver the message in 3 ways. The first is gossip. That's all lies, all distortions, and that creates what we perceive as hell on earth. Then there's the warrior, which I think I'm in this stage right now. This is a mix. Sometimes lies, sometimes truth, still believing in the symbols and giving them power. I feel like this stage or this type of message is a lot of like anger. You're realizing the truth and you're angry that you forgot the truth. And we take that out on other people sometimes. And then there's the truth message. This is when we hardly speak. The truth is when we hardly speak. Again, just blows my mind. We know that we give meaning to all the symbols and we've mastered awareness. We are the message. We are the truth. Just take that in for a moment. The paradox of it all is that we are the message. We are the truth. We are God. We have it all within inside of ourselves. We just forgot, and that's okay. So ask your heart, what kind of messenger do you want to be? The gossip, warrior, or truth? I'm trying to move towards truth. I'm definitely in the warrior stage. If you want to change the world, change the main character of your story. I've been saying that a million times on here. Hopefully that's your main takeaway from this book and from this video. By default, the secondary characters will change, but not by you forcing it. They will just change on their own. You change the world by being yourself. There are billions of different perspectives and points of views, but they all come from the same light. The same force of life is behind every single one of us. Now, this last quote I just love, and I want to post it on a wall somewhere, but it says, have a love affair with life. Just have fun with life. Enjoy the beautiful, amazing parts of life, like good food, great connections, great conversations, just all the beautiful things in life. Just go and have a love affair with it all. What it comes down to, and I've said a bajillion times at this point, is that you create your dream. You create your life. You create your virtual reality, however you want to see it. Is it this beautiful, glorious dream full of all these things that you are desiring, or even better things that you can't even imagine? Or is it a nightmare full of all these limiting beliefs and these stories and agreements that don't serve you? You get to choose. So I hope you found this video interesting. Comment down below with any of your takeaways from this video. Please go and check out this book if you want to read it and interpret it from yourself, because remember, we're all interpreting it in our own way. This is just Lindsay's version of it all. So I hope you found it interesting. I find these books so powerful, and I just love sharing them with you all. And I know that the way that I'm going to help everyone else is by embodying these things on my own. And I try to do that the best that I can. I'm not being perfect, but I'm trying my best. So if you are new here, please subscribe. We have new videos maybe every week. It's an interesting season of life, but a lot of times they're talk videos like this, or yoga flows or meditations or vlogs, but we're always exploring what it means to live an aligning, fulfilling life, like I do on my podcast, Alignment Adventures. Please like this video if you enjoyed it. It just supports the podcast so much, and it's so free and takes 1 second to hit that thumbs up button. And yeah, share this video with anyone that you think would enjoy this message. And of course, I will see you in the next video. I'm sending you all so much love and all the highest vibes.